Hey everyone, it is Maud Maciak, your host for Unpack with Goey. Today's episode is all about Abby adventuring Vendies. She is a nurse, a mom, a traveler. Her husband is a pilot, and she goes over everything we need to know about packing for medical needs, jet lag, breastfeeding. We cover quite a bit of fun, interesting stuff for new parents and also season one, honestly. I learned a lot and I think you'll enjoy this episode. So let's unpack.
Picture this. You're enjoying a book on the beach, your kids playing in the sand in the background. Wait a second. Let's keep it real here. If you've traveled with kids, you know that picture perfect vacation is rarely the whole story. Welcome to Unpack with Goey, the show where Maud sits down with family travel influencers to break down the feed. We're going behind the perfect aesthetic to find the real reality of traveling with kids, the good, the bad, and the messy. Get the raw, unfiltered tips you won't see on Instagram. It's time to dive in and unpack with Goey.
Hi, Abby. How you doing?
Hi, great. How are you?
Good. I am so excited to have you on this podcast because you have a very unique background. And I think that many of our audience and families out there are going to be glued to their listening device. I should say, I sound like a boomer, but listening device to be able to hear what you have to say because Abby is traveling mom, sure, but she was also a flight nurse. Is that right? Yeah,
Yeah,
flight nurse.
correct.
Not just a nurse, a flight nurse. I didn't even
Yeah.
know.
Like,
Yeah, before you said that, I didn't even know that was an actual thing. So I want to hear all about that in 1 second. But and then your husband is also a pilot. So yeah, your kids are like right bathing in the travel industry,
yeah.
full
Mhm.
on.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, tell us what is a flight nurse? Like what do you do? Do you still do it or you did before the kids
I'm a
or
nurse practitioner now. Now I
okay.
work in trauma, like in hospital-based medicine. But as a flight nurse, you pick patients up from wherever they are injured and or sick and bring them to a different location that has better medical capabilities. And that's actually how I met my husband. He was the pilot on the plane that I was taking care of patients. So yeah, we've traveled all over the world between work and outside life, and then we've just carried that on with our kids. So it's been a lot of fun over the years. So yeah.
Awesome. So you guys are like of the jet lag, right? I mean, do you even feel the jet lag anymore
Oh,
or
no.
feel yeah, so I like to start our convo by this unpack your feed segment. So let's get started. I wanted to hear what is like one big misconception that you discovered was completely untrue when you started to travel with kids.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that people either think that traveling with kids has to be like perfectly curated or miserable. I feel like you just hear the two ends of the spectrum and the extremes, but it's really just parenting in a different location, minus all the everyday stressors. So you don't have chores, you don't have work, you don't have school, which allows you to enjoy the time together. So I think, you just always see these extremes, but it's really just right in the middle. It's still parenting, but without all that extra added stress. So.
Right. Do you have like a misconception that maybe your husband being a pilot taught you when you first started to date or about flying in general?
Specifically with like the pilot lifestyle, I think
Yeah.
people assume that you're jet setting everywhere and flying for free everywhere, but that becomes a lot more complicated when you have kids. So a lot of our trips now, we still buy our tickets and because if the plane is full, you'd be sitting at the airport for flight after flight after flight waiting, which we had a lot more flexibility to do prior to having children. But when you have little ones, that's the last thing you want to be doing. So yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that makes sense. So you've traveled quite a bit, like you said. Do you feel like your parenting is very different when you travel than when it is? Like, do you give up some rule? Do you kind of shift a little bit
Yeah.
around the things?
I mean, I think flexibility is key to enjoying any trip with your kids. But in general, at home, I'm pretty set on a strict schedule. Like whether it's like napping for the baby, she's napping right now, or like bedtimes for both of my kids, like, okay, we got to wind down, we got to get to bed, all of that. But when we're traveling, we kind of just like relax all of that. We keep the general routines, like when we are going to bed, whether that's a sound machine, sleep sack, and things like that. But flexibility matters way more in being able to enjoy the trip. So we get rid of those strict schedules when we're on the go for sure.
Okay, so you become like the cool mom that doesn't have to say go to bed every
I don't
time.
know that I'm necessarily cool mom and let's go of all the stress, but yeah, we're definitely more relaxed for sure.
I love that. Okay. What is one moment that you didn't post in your feed because you were like, this is not really something I should be posting. It's not on brand. This is not what I want to show the world.
So it's not necessarily because it's not on brand, but like I don't post videos and moments of my kids melting down or delays or total chaos. And some of that is because obviously I don't want to post my kids in those moments, but a lot of it is because when you're in a totally chaotic moment, you're not like, let me grab my phone and film this, you know? So for the large majority of people, like social media is a highlight reel. But what's ironic is that those hard moments are actually what makes you better at all of this. Like getting through those hard moments and learning how to handle various setbacks are what has made us better. Or like forgetting to pack something and realizing you need it. You know, all of those things in the long run have taught us a lot of lessons. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's true everywhere in life, right? How many countries have you been to with all of that? Do you know?
I don't know off the
No.
top of my head a lot. I mean, our 6-year-old has been to at least 10 countries. My husband has been to a ton being a pilot, and I've also been to a lot for my flight nursing career. I don't know. I would have to add them up, but a lot. We've traveled a lot. So, yeah.
Yeah. And out of all those destinations, do you feel like there's one that you wouldn't go back to with the kids in particular?
I wouldn't say there's so much like a destination versus like a time in life. There are places that maybe we went before kids that we might go again when they're older, but there's also places that we've gone to with our young children. And we've just found overall we really enjoy destinations that have like open space and nature and flexibility a lot more than dense cities while they're younger.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I actually find that I'm the opposite. I found that the city calm my son a lot more. I think because we both have very busy brains, and so like when we go out, seeing all the things and the museums and everything really
Mhm.
makes us happy
Yeah.
versus nature makes me anxious. I think I'm from Paris, so
Yeah.
that's probably
Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, going into the wild, I'm like pretty much freaked out the whole time. I'm a horrible hiking buddy. Do not take me
Oh,
on
okay.
hikes.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
friends know that about me. I'll eat all the food and go to the museum, but the hiking is like not my vibe.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to hear like parents have like different
Yeah.
appreciation for you guys. It's the
And we
wilderness.
still do, and you know, like again, we still do. Just in December, we went to London, so with both kids and had a great time. So, I mean, you still can make the best out of literally any location, whether that's close to home or far away. I mean, I'm a big advocate of like traveling with your kids in adventures. Doesn't have to mean you're going on a 10-hour plane ride. But yeah, I mean, I think, and it doesn't have to be like, we're not big like campers and outdoor. We like hiking, but in terms of nature, I just mean like, you know, there's parks and open spaces and space for them to run and get their energy out and that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
I want to dive a little deeper into venturing Vendies, your Instagram, because, like I said, your background being unique and you're covering breastfeeding, during travel, jet lags, so much, like medications. It's pretty cool. So let me ask you, what are the things parents should always pack when they go on a trip in terms of medication?
So, over the years, prior to kids and now since having kids, we obviously have been in situations where we have not had what we needed and have been scrambling. So, we've kind of learned along the way. You can really prepare yourself by just packing a few simple things. So, as a nurse practitioner, I always tell people to pack a small medication kit with a fever reducer and any basic meds you might need, along with a thermometer that's reliable. Keep that in your carry-on on the plane because you never want to get stuck without that. Like you end up with a fever or something in the middle of flight and you don't have what you need. An extra outfit for both you and the kids to always keep accessible. Again, spit up, vomit, whatever it is, you just never know when you might need that. And either keep it in a Ziploc or keep a barf bag with you because these are things that you don't realize you'll need until you need them, right? Until you don't have them and then you're like, I really should have packed that. So you can use a Ziploc for wet clothes, for a vomit bag, for spills, whatever, dirty diapers. You can use it for anything. Those are some of the basics that I always recommend traveling with. But actually, because of this, I get asked this question all of the time. I'm working really hard on creating a comprehensive travel health guide for families, which will include like a checklist of everything that I pack in my medication kit, especially when traveling internationally and it's not as easy to just run to the store and know what you're going to get, and how to handle different situations and how to be prepared. So that's coming soon. I have a wait list on my website for it, but I think that will be really helpful for families in packing and being prepared, especially when traveling internationally. So
I will add this little anecdote actually that just happened to me. We went to Denmark and my son had a stomach virus. So something as simple as a medication to help reduce the nauseas and the vomiting. When we showed up at the pharmacy, we were unable to buy that. Note to self for everyone discovering Denmark soon. Do pack your very necessity medications because they do not allow over the counter without prescription.
The same thing has happened to us over the years. There was a stomach bug situation where we didn't have medication, and then also like a rash situation. That was for me actually before we had kids, but I had a really bad rash on my face and I needed like a steroid cream. And we were in Iceland and you couldn't get what I needed anywhere over the counter. So there's things here that you can get over the counter that they may have different names in other countries, or they may be less accessible, or you maybe need a prescription. So there's a lot of things that now I travel with to stay prepared. So.
I can't wait to see your checklist to see what else we need to pack. Yeah. On your platform, you cover a lot about breastfeeding because you're going through it, right?
Yeah, I have a 9-month-old.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, so that's awesome because you can really remember all of those details. Mine is 9 years old, so I'm like, what was it like? I forgot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so tell us, breastfeeding while traveling, what is a favorite tip you could share with a new mom that is taking the journey of traveling with their kid?
I would say two things. It feels super overwhelming at first, like whether it's wanting to have some privacy while you're doing it, or how am I going to feed in a different environment while baby's distracted, or all of the supplies if you're pumping, whatever it may be. The first thing I would say for sure is just that to know that it gets easier with time. It really does. And for me, it's actually made traveling with a baby easier because you don't necessarily have to bring a ton of bottles if you're not pumping, if you're just breastfeeding. You don't need a lot of extra supplies. You can be their comfort, their food, And then my other tip for sure is to feed during takeoff and landing, whether you're breastfeeding or bottle feeding. Babies and young kids, they have a lot more trouble with their ears on takeoff and landing, and they can't really explain that to us. And the swallowing motion helps clear ears. So you can prevent a big meltdown with baby and the crying ahead of time if you just try to time it and nurse them on takeoff and landing. And then in general, just to know that it gets easier along the way. And this is something else that I breastfed my first daughter for 15 months, and now I'm in my second breastfeeding journey, and she's 9 months. And breastfeeding is a challenge across the board, right? I don't know anybody who's been like, this is just so simple from day one. And each journey is different. Both of my babies, it's been different. You have different challenges and different experiences in getting started. And so I think, of course, traveling and taking that somewhere outside of your rocking chair, your glider, your nursery, that sounds overwhelming at first, but the more you do it, it really does get easier. And so, yeah, my page has evolved over time from being just traveling with families to what else I've truly learned and I can provide for people. And that to me is the unique aspect of that is the nurse practitioner side of things and breastfeeding with little kids and our pilot family. And so these are 3 things I've added in over time to really try to help other families and other new moms get going with their kids. So just things like TSA roles and, what supplies to take, my favorite list of supplies for breastfeeding, the things like feeding during takeoff and landing, other little tips that make it so much easier for you. So
yeah, you do. And I notice you do write a lot. I love that because, the Instagram stuff is great. I do save stuff, but ultimately when you have it all laid down as a list, it just makes it way easier to go back to listen. Yeah. We're not sick all the time. But the last trip we did get sick, and I was like, ugh, that's the worst. Plus, it was at the beginning of the trip, right? So it's I really feel like it takes a toll on your vacation when it just starts like that. Yeah. And we got it in the airplane in the airport. I don't know because of the date.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. Do you have tricks or tips to keep us all healthy when we travel, when we fly?
I mean, it's inevitable. If I could never get sick, that would be amazing. But hand washing, hydration, sleep, and a balanced diet. I think those are the most important things. A lot of times when you're traveling, you're touching a lot of dirty surfaces, from security bins to bathrooms to tray tables. You're maybe not drinking as much water. Sometimes people do that subconsciously. Sometimes they do it intentionally, so they don't have to use the bathroom as much on a long flight, which you should not be doing. You should absolutely be drinking tons of water. It can help with a lot of different things. Your sleep gets messed up, which kind of makes you more susceptible to getting sick. And then a lot of times, we're like relying on heavy carbs and sugars for travel snacks, which again just leads to increased risk of getting sick and lowers the efficiency of your immune system. So I always say, one of my tips that I always stick with is to make sure you're packing protein along with your travel snacks. There's only so much you can do when you're on the plane, in the air, and on a travel day. And then for sure, once you get there, make sure that you are eating a well-balanced diet, that you're prioritizing sleep for everybody, and that again, you're hydrating and washing your hands a ton. Unfortunately, what you guys got, the stomach bug, is one of the things that hand sanitizer doesn't work against the stomach bug. Only soap and water does. So a lot of times you're busy through the airport or wherever it may be, right? And you're just using hand sanitizer real quick. I mean, we use it too. It's better than nothing. It does prevent a lot of things, but it doesn't work against like norovirus, for example, which is the stomach bug. So yeah.
Oh, interesting. See, I didn't know that. When you were saying earlier to pack a Ziploc bag, I actually pack one of those, for the cloth diaper.
Oh, yeah, gotcha.
You usually have also with it, you have like one of those wet bag that seals and everything.
Yes, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I've actually kept mine and I use it regularly to be able to put anything dirty that comes along, including like incident or anything like that. Even like if you spill something or, whatever. I think I narrowed down the preparation, but when you used to prepare so much, you kind of run into this like debate. Am I being too much? Am I being too anxious in terms of like germs and everything? How do you balance traveling with your kids, being prepared, but not like fall into this anxious kind of mentality of over preparedness?
Yeah, that's easy to do for sure. I feel like sometimes it's like a blessing and a curse to work in medicine. You like know too much, right? So, but I really focus on being prepared, not scared. Like we want to be able to travel and enjoy ourselves. So packing these few essentials really helps us be prepared and have the confidence to go without overthinking everything and being scared of going and getting to the place where it's like, is this even worth it? Kind of, So I think just like knowing what you're packing and why you're packing it really helps you with that.
Have you ever had to take your kids to the hospital in like a foreign country so far?
I need to knock on some wood.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's
Yeah.
great. I hope you never have to. I was just curious if you had like what was
Yeah,
your
no, we have not.
experience? Yeah.
But I mean, I do think part of that is being prepared also because, like we just spoke about, some medications you can't get over the counter. So if you're in another country, it's not that we've never gotten sick or never had an issue, but if you're in another country and you don't have the things you need, you could very well be buying your trip to a doctor or a hospital because you can't just buy those medications over the counter, So you can avoid a lot of those things as well by being prepared. So
That's true. I had an episode in Canada where I had to find those butterfly strips because we were in the middle of nowhere and essentially my son fell and he hurt himself and we couldn't reach a clinic. We were like 2 hours from a nearest town. Luckily, there was this hotel nearby and I was like, do you have anything in your emergency kit? I'm not a guest here, but like I'm a desperate mom. So ever since, I do put those in my first aid kit that is made by this cute company. I'll put the link below. But it's really cute and it's filled with everything you need. That was like one of the things, like talking about being prepared, the butterfly stitches. When you need them, they can be really a lifesaver.
That specific topic of like injuries and lacerations and cuts are on my list of things to get to eventually. So currently I work in trauma and I work in facial trauma. So I do a lot of suturing and stitching, and I think that is something there. It's not a cut and dry across the board, like this requires stitches and this doesn't, but I do think that some education around that and preparedness around that, like having supplies you might need to clean a wound without packing your whole house, and close a wound with a butterfly stitch or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, at least to get you to the proper medical treatment, right? So like 2 hours is a long time. You have to keep it clean and close for sure. Right. So do you feel like your background has changed how you travel? I mean, do you feel like you're traveling differently than most parents, because of your background?
I mean, yeah, I would say that I'm more aware of risks, involved with it, but I don't let that stop us. It just changes how I prepare for the trip. For example, like you were just talking about 2 hours away. I mean, I always am aware of where we are going and how far medical capabilities are and what those medical capabilities are. For example, when I was pregnant with my first daughter, and we went on a baby moon and we went to Portugal and it was wonderful. But when we were looking up destinations, we looked at more like remote islands and very tropical places. And at that point in pregnancy, I did not want to be somewhere where we couldn't get medical care. So yeah, like I said in the beginning, we really enjoy being out in nature and open spaces. Iceland is one example where we've driven all the way around the country with kids. So just being aware of where you are and how long that might take you to get to a hospital or medical care if you were to need it. So again, it's really just being prepared.
Yeah, and something so simple is also just learn your emergency contact in that country. That's so simple, but
I have posted about that many times. Like 911 doesn't work everywhere, so make sure before you go, just save the number so you have it. You're not scrambling for it in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
So
And then also the other thing I did and I learned along the way was, that emergency number that you have on your phone?
yeah.
Yeah, normally it's my husband, but when we travel together, in case something were to happen, I put someone else
Yeah, that's a good
because
idea.
it's
Yeah.
completely pointless to put the
Right.
partner you're
If you're like,
with.
yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. So little things like this that definitely you learn along the way. Right. So what moment during your traveling journey with your kids, I mean, I know they're young, right? But one moment you realize, you know what, those little guys are pretty resilient. Like, it's okay. Yeah, even if we encounter roadblocks medically or else, like they're resilient, they'll be okay. Like, is there a moment where you kind of validate that feeling?
It's not a specific moment, but I would say across the board, like the one thing I hear from parents all the time is what about the jet lag? What about their sleep? And I will honestly say, and maybe you've experienced this too, kids are more resilient in terms of jet lag than adults are. Like
Unfortunately.
unfortunately, right. Yeah. It's like if you're sick and they're not sick and you're like, I don't have the energy, right? Like they really bounce back so quickly. I mean, after, a day, a good night's sleep and whatever, they are ready to go and like on a new schedule and can be really flexible. And I think that's just the one thing that I think scares a lot of parents. Like, what about the time change? What about this? What about, and from our experience, they always adjust more quickly than us. So, yeah, they are very resilient and they adjust very quickly. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can testify to that in yeah, maybe within a day or two. Especially
Yeah.
if you let them nap, if they're like very little and you take them places and they end up falling asleep in a
Yeah.
stroller, they just digest very fast. All right, well, that was super interesting. I learned quite a bit. I love it because I always think I know a lot. 10
Yeah.
years of my life traveling with my little one, but I always learn, and that's what I love about doing those episodes is that, there's always a different angle for everybody. Every parent has like always something to teach me. But I wanted to put you through a confession corner.
Okay.
So are you ready? What is the most chaotic moment that made you think, why are we doing this?
Yeah, I mean, I will say no matter how many travel pages you look at online, it can look like all like rainbows and butterflies, right? But that's not the case. Everyone is having difficult moments. And there have been many for us. And there are lots of times, whether it's before you get out the door at the airport or in the first 24 hours of your trip that you were like, why are we doing this? Is this even worth it? Should we have just stayed home? Most recently, I will say on our trip to London this winter, my husband ended up with food poisoning and was very sick. And then we had to go back to the airport and get a rental car to go to the Cotswolds in the midst of him being very sick. And they didn't have any rental cars that were big enough for us and the kids and all the other things. So anyway, it was like total chaos in the moment. We got it all figured out, but in the moment you were like, well, we should just go home. Like this is terrible. right? But after the fact, you can laugh about it. And again, it's things that prepare you for future trips and how to handle those things.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, food poisoning, I think to me, food poisoning is the worst. I mean, it doesn't last long, but it
Yeah.
incapacitates you so much. You're like wasting
Yeah.
days. Yeah,
Right.
it's so
Yeah.
annoying. Okay, so be prepared is the word of order from
That's
you
right.
as a nurse and
Yes.
everything. What is one thing you wish you knew before you started to travel with your kids? Something you can pass down to the next generation of parents.
It gets easier the more you do it, especially when you start. Maybe someone is thinking, okay, we'll give it a try. Like they feel overwhelmed by the idea and they're like, let's give it a try. And they go with their 15-month-old, for example, which is a horrible. If there's one rough period of time, it's like that age of 15 to 24 months. It's like they're old enough to walk and move around, but they're not old enough to be occupied by a screen, you know. Anyway, if you go and the first trip doesn't feel easy, feels really hard, just know that it gets easier. The older they get, the more you do it. Both things make it easier with time. So.
So true because a lot of parents ask me like, how old should I start traveling with kids? Like they don't remember when they're babies and everything. But the reality is when you travel with them as infants, you get to teach them the routines, the environment, the unfamiliar environment that is normal, that you can adapt, being in public, the noises. And that, even if they don't remember the trip, that will set you up for success when they do turn on too. So even though there was those years, I completely agree with you. They're like, I mean, I don't want them again. Like I'm fine with my 9-year-old. But yeah, it's the preparation on the younger years that set yourself up for an easier time during those difficult years, for sure.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
They do learn a lot as they go. Our 6-year-old is like a pro now. She knows what to pack in her backpack for the plane. She knows how to get herself situated and get her snacks and all of the things. And so it definitely does get easier the more you go. And like you said, like they might not remember each individual trip or moment, but for us, it's super important to show them the world and how other people live and other cultures. And that shapes who they are, truly. So.
100%. Yeah. What is one thing that you would share that is considered an unpopular opinion? You know it's not popular, but you do it or you think it anyway.
I think for us, like traveling does not need to be kid-centric to be kid-friendly. This is like a huge message that I have said on Instagram. I say it all the time. My husband and I live off of this. Like, whether that's a restaurant or a trip or whatever it may be, your kids will adapt and adjust and are much more resilient than you think. And there's been trips that, I mean, it's not Disney World, right? And so there's not all this like parks and theme parks and whatever to occupy them, but they don't need it. And we found they don't need it. Like they have just as much fun going to a park and playing outside with kids from another country or, going on a hike to look at waterfalls or whatever it may be. It really doesn't have to be all kid-centric to be kid-friendly.
And a kid sense when the parents are relaxed and having a good time. So I think I would even advocate to say if you are having a good time and the place suits you too, then
Yes.
everybody is having a good time because there's nothing worse than going to a place like, I mean, I'm gonna name names, right? Like Chuck and Cheese, for example. And then you're just there essentially like almost like being in jail, waiting for your kid to finally be done.
Yeah.
They feel all that and then it's not a good memory for you and for them and then you don't feel like you really enjoyed your time together as a family, so there's no bonding. What's the point of spending all this money for for missing the point of it all basically? So yeah, 100%. I'm a huge fan of places, and this is why I started GOE to begin with. Is I'm a huge fan of places that value the family as a whole, where the parents can have, for example, a nice dinner, but then the kids are entertained because there's like a little corner in the restaurant that are just made for them.
So important.
Yeah.
And that is like, something we don't see a lot in the States, but a lot of other countries value that so much. And we have loved getting to experience that. Yeah, like getting to have an enjoyable meal while they are welcome it's not even that they have activities for them, which is wonderful when they do, but they're welcome there, like it's not like, why are you bringing your kids here?
Yeah, 100%. I just added in GOE the other day a brunch place in Paris where essentially the guy, it's a locally run thing by this couple, and the guy has like 4 tables in the restaurant. And he made a tiny area with books and bins with like kids' toys. And then on the weekend during Sunday or Saturday brunch, he brings in his friend that is like an entertainer for kids. And the kids are being put like in a little adjacent room where there's their own brunch essentially that are adapted to them. And then you can have a brunch with your spouse or friends in
Mhm.
peace. And it's awesome. And I did this kind of place. I live for that, honestly. Those are always the best.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That was such a wonderful time I had with you to listen to all of those amazing advice you have. I love watching your platform. And again, like you are prolific. You're publishing a bunch of different guides coming up. So I'm excited for that. I'll put a few of the links down in the description of this podcast. But before I let you go, I have a little rapid fire. So hold on. There's no judgment. Just shoot what you think.
Okay.
Best place for kids.
I would say our favorites have been Iceland and Austria.
Awesome. Snack MVP.
Something that's a favorite, like high value favorite, along with protein.
Always protein. Gotta keep them fed, like not hungry for sure. One thing you always overpack.
I've gotten better at this, but I do think most parents and us in the beginning, we would overpack toys. They don't need a lot of toys, right? They will find things to play with, whether it's in the hotel or outside or wherever else. So you think, oh, I need to occupy them with all of this stuff, and they don't really need a lot. So,
Yeah, I think that's mine as well. I was thinking a lot about that question actually, being a minimalist, packer. And yeah, I think toys is where definitely we had to learn to pare down.
I would say that's something that we would overpack and didn't need. Something that we overpack and do need is diapers when they're in diapers. Like you never want to end up without diapers. So yeah,
Yeah, that's the
that
worst.
never have too many. Yeah.
So funny enough, it's not medical supply. I was surprised about that.
I don't feel like I would call that overpacking because I feel like there's a reason for it all. And so I would never say like, what can I take out of this kit? Like I want it there. So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And last but not least, are you plan it or wing it?
We kind of fall in between with kids. So I think before kids, we were very much wing it. Now we kind of plan like the framework of our trip, but allow for flexibility in the middle. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all you know, or at least a good overview of what you know, since you have so much experience traveling with your kids and without. Everybody should check out your platform at Venturing Vendy and see what's more to come. Apparently, a lot of guides.
And you can get on the wait list for travel health guide that will be coming out on my website, which I think you'll include. So just really tangible, quick ways to make that easier.
I love that. Thank you so much for providing all that value for our community. All right.
Yeah.
Have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.